we're going to jump straight in with what are flow triggers and as well, and we're going to get some really great conversation around the science and art of getting into flow, and what that actually means and how it actually means. If there was a very short introduction to our panel, um, let's say, Mila, would you like to introduce yourself and who you are?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Iris, for organizing everything. So we're talking about flow, and I think the key thing that we want to communicate is how flow translates into day-to-day life and why it's a cool thing. So I specialize in helping women in midlife use flow to to be at their best, whether it's at work or at home or in relationships. And that relationship includes to the self as well.
Congratulations, awesome. It's I
Thank you.
call it Viva la Coaching Revolution because it's a new age of helping each other make things happen without relying on other systems and learning from each other. So I think it's just coaching is incredible. It's helped me so much. So thank you for being here, Mila. Um,
Thank you.
Jan, would you like to introduce yourself and who you are, what you do?
Hi, my name is Jan, as already seen here. I work as a psychologist from Germany, specifically in Nuremberg, but since I do it online, it's of course also internationally. And yes, I'm very curious about the subject flow and creativity. And actually, right now, I'm working a lot with leaders in startups, mainly in customer success, but also other creative endeavors, to not only introduce flow more into their work, but also into their lives. And engineer their lives in such a way that their work takes place in it and not vice versa.
Amazing, Jan. Nice one. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rory. Thanks, Iris.
And George, how do you say it? Georgie?
It's easier to say George.
George. Excellent, excellent. So yeah, feel free to share who you are and what you're up to.
Yes, I'm a psychologist and hypnotherapist, and last but not least, I'm flow coach, as we all hear. And I help people who got stuck, like in their life, in feeling like they're in a quicksand. So flow state and especially flow triggers help me in my life and my clients to achieve some kind of breakthrough state, to have some opportunities to push themselves forward in their life towards positive changes and to do it more efficiently. As we will speak later, how to do it with the precise using of the flow triggers.
Amazing. Nice one, George. So, Lisba.
𝗍𝗪, that is.
Yeah.
𝗍𝗪, that's right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Iris. Thank you, Rory. So I'm an executive coach based in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I've been coaching since 2008, so it's almost been 17 years. My approach in coaching is, I bring in coaching, of course, but also bring in neuroscience, but also energy work to help support my clients in helping them realize their full potential. I'm a big believer in flow. Personally, on my personal individual level, I use motorcycling as a tool to help me develop flow, be in flow, and enjoy flow states. And of course, I teach meditation. I also conduct spiritual journeys, and I've conducted them in the Himalayas in India, but also in Vancouver. Yeah, that's about me. And looking forward to interacting with all of you and getting to know you all better and sharing, hopefully, whoever's watching, some insights that they can walk away with.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rishab. So, Sunil, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, I'm Sunil Menon and I'm from India. And I'm a coach. I'm a triathlete coach and endurance coach. And I've been applying flow states to my clients who want to get into endurance training, how to, whenever they're running a marathon or Ironman event, how to get into a flow state so that it becomes easier for them to execute their plans and enjoy their races. So I've developed few triggers and techniques, which I'm very excited to talk about here. And yeah, let's see how it goes.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Sunil. And
Thank
Iris,
you.
would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I love flow. It's been fantastic learning about flow. I've been a corporate executive in communications for over 20 years, working as a consultant as well, and as a freelancer. And the past 6 years, been on a self-discovery journey and started coaching a few years ago in emotional freedom. And then met this wonderful people in the flow coaching journey. And here we are talking and having live conversations and sharing with the world the magic of flow.
Fantastic. Fantastic. It's just really exciting to be here with you all. I'll probably mention who I am as well. My name is Rory Lemon. I go by Rory Lemon AID to help online to do with neurodivergent creativity and how to get their projects out there throughout getting through procrastination and into vision aligned business and project releasing. So that's what I love to help people with because I certainly couldn't even find my voice for a lot of my life, and so yeah, I'm so happy, and this is what I love doing. I picked something that I didn't think I could do before, so I'm really pleased to be here too. So thank you. I was going to mention what are flow triggers. We've got a little statement here that's going to be it's the latest definition. Flow states have triggers. These are preconditions that lead to more flow. Some 23 to 36 different triggers have already been discovered, depending on how you're counting. So, yeah, most researchers agree there are probably more. At the core, all of flow's triggers work the same way. Flow follows focus. The state can only arise when all of our attention is focused on the task at hand. So that's what all of Flow's triggers do. Amplify attention and laser focus us in the here and now. So with that in mind, this juicy topic, is there something, as I just shared that, because obviously 23 to 36, there's no point just listing it as a directory because that wouldn't be fun. We get to explore it from our own experiences as well and what lands for us. Because that's what makes it give it meaning too. Because there's like so many different ways. I think it's probably be a useful way to explore would be just to how does it mean to you? What's your favorite one? And we can go from there potentially. So as you or unless you've got something you want to share specifically as well. So as you hear all of that and you've heard this description of what flow triggers are, is there someone here who is like to kick us off with what they're getting from all of this?
I would love to start actually on something. So I've been thinking a lot about the concept of flow and also how it, let's say, materializes in my personal life. And one thing that I realized is that as humans right now, we are living in such a performance-oriented world. And I think it's probably normal. It's imprinted into our DNA to create something, right? But on the other side, we're also seeing a huge mental health crisis in the world, and a lot of people burning out in the workplace and trying to perform better and going higher and going higher and going higher. Also, not only on the costs of their own lives, but also on the costs of actually other human lives. And I think in that regard, it's also the whole performance spiral is also can also be seen as a pandemic to us as humans, I think, or something which we kind of even need to overcome and see why are we actually following that, right? A lot of self-worth, a lot of pride linked to that. And this has led me, for my personal life, to the conclusion that flow is not a necessity to us, it's a gift that we can use to create something that helps us to either come more into peace with ourselves, with the projects that we're doing, or with the work that we're doing, but also to connect as a community of humans. And in that regard, I think, for example, what I found out is there can be anything that can be a flow trigger. But one thing that I realized is, for example, just us coming together and sharing something, having like a common goal and vulnerable communication, like open communication around that, is a big part that can drive us into flow and actually exchange how to make the world a better place. Yes.
Thanks, Jan. That's a great reason and perspective that you're bringing there. So thank you so much.
So
I just saw Sunil. Did you want to say something?
yes, definitely. Yeah, thank you. So one thing that I would like to always follow, and I think this is one thing I've learned in the course, is before we start any work, it's very important that we do a breath work, right? We try to get into our body, get into our mind, slow things down, and then start, our work. So if we can do a demo of a simple breath work over here and show people how to really get into a flow state or flow trigger, I think that would be a great thing. What do you guys think? Should we do these? Because this is something that we've learned, and I've practiced this. Before I start any work, I just try to take a break, a breath break, do some breathing exercises, and then start my work. I think it really helps. I think we have seen this even in sports, right? Since I'm related to sports, I've seen a lot of professional athletes. Whenever they are in chaos, they just hold, they breathe, and then there is you. So anybody
I think
else
it's a
here
great idea. Do you wanna walk us through that? And I think also once we're done with the breath, we should probably once again review what is flow state, why it's beneficial, just to kind of land people and make sure they're with us. But we can definitely start with the breath.
Okay, so yeah, let's start with the breath. So the breath is going to be very easy. One thing that we are going to do is inhale and fill our lungs, and then try to take a sniff, one more sniff, and then try to exhale through our mouth. And we are going to do 5 reps. I'll give you the count, okay? And then we will start this session. Ready? So you can close your eyes. You can inhale for the count of 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Take a deep sniff and exhale through your mouth. Slowly exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Take a deep sniff. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Sniff. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, you can open your eyes, and yeah, I think we are ready to start the session. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sunil.
Thanks, Sunil.
I don't know
Great reminder, I think, that it all starts with the body and the mindset. And so I just want to quickly, I mean, some people define flow as just enjoying yourself, losing track of time, being at your peak performance without a lot of effort, sort of losing transcendental experience of losing a sense of self, having things work out without effort and trying. But I'll read an AI official review of what is flow state. Flow state is a mental state where a person is fully immersed and intensely focused on an activity, experiencing a sense of enjoyment and effortless participation where time seems to disappear. It was popularized by psychologist 𝗍𝗂𝗪𝗍𝗪𝗍𝗪, and it's often described as being in the zone or in the groove. Does anybody want to add anything? Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
So
I
then
do.
kind of going back to what Rory said, sorry, is it's a 4-state process, and there are triggers that allow us to release and enter the flow state, which feels like what I just said.
Brilliant. George.
Yes, I'd like to add that, simply speaking, flow state, it's a phenomenon that allows us to be super efficient. We could increase our productivity up to 500%. And this gives us huge opportunities, not to be obsessed with some performance, but for me, it's more about how can I implement changes in my life or in the lives of the people whom I work with. So it can be done in a more quick and productive way. So I can improve my life, not doing something for ages, but I could implement this powerful state and do the work in a short period of time. And this is really wonderful and amazing. And this demands these preconditions as a flow triggers, so we could be more, could have more flow and could be more flow prone. And also I'd like to add that we live in this world as a prediction machine, so we don't react on the stimuli. We have predictions about anything. This is how our brain works, and this is backed up with the strong neuroscience researchers. And having these predictions, actually we act. And if we act anyway, because we live in a world of action, we need, it's a good idea to do it more with more benefits for us and to do it more efficiently. And what we deal in our everyday life, especially in the modern life, we have a lot of chaos, a lot of uncertainty. And we need to do something with this. And using flow, we can build some, let's say, bricks or spots of stability. And from these spots of stability, we could improve our life very, very rapidly in a very efficient way.
Yeah.
Rishpa.
So I'll just pose a question, Rory, if you don't mind. Georgi or George, do you have an example from your own life? How you use flow, what your favorite triggers are, and maybe what you've seen for your clients?
I will start from one of the flow triggers that was implemented by 𝗍𝗂𝗪𝗍𝗪𝗍𝗪, sorry. And this trigger is about balance between our skills and the challenges that we have. And we have to achieve flow, the challenge should be somewhere beyond your skills. Because otherwise, if it's super simple, it will be boring for you and you will not achieve flow. But if it's too much, it's too complex, you it's far beyond your skills. You will have a lot of anxiety, and you will not achieve flow. So this is about flow state is about some middle way between these two points. But I'd like to implement to look at this concept from other perspective. From one hand, we have chaos. From other hand, we have order. And if we have too much order, it will be like dogma. So we will not have any changes. We will not perform any activity because we would like to keep this order forever. So it's like a stuck state. You will not achieve flow. And from other way, if you have too much chaos, this chaos will blow you away. So you need some kind of control in this chaos. So again, we go into this golden middle where you can have the flow and where you can deal with the chaos efficiently. Because again, if you want to have some changes, you need to loosen your priors. You need to change your beliefs. So you go away a little bit from the order. And from other way, you go into chaos, but voluntarily, consciously, to find some novelty, to find some insights that can be implemented in your everyday life. And this is other way that I would like to offer you to look at the flow state.
Thanks, George.
Yeah, if I could
Do you
add
have an
something
example? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
should I go ahead? Should I speak? Yeah. All right. So yeah, so adding to what Georgie and everyone else said, I think, one of the first things that I was going to mention was to, of course, to give reverence to 𝗦𝗂𝗪𝗃𝗃, who kind of discovered flow state. I mean, but the point is that I think as humans, we all have that ability to be in flow. It's a way of being. It's a state. We all have happiness. We have, Jan, as you mentioned, mental health crises that are going on. So flow, the way I look at flow is a great mental state to have and access on a regular daily basis, not only for performance, but also for your individual joy and well-being. And from a spiritual lens, I think one of the biggest things of flow is that you can slow things down. As Sunil started with the breath work, and of course, breath work balances the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we achieve that balance and we achieve that stillness, and again, from a spiritual lens, only when the mind is still can we actually understand our true nature. So flow, I believe, is not only about performance, about achieving things, but it's also about just taking that moment in flow to understand your potential, to understand who you are, and really enjoy being present. And I want to end up by saying that, Lao Tzu, the famous Chinese philosopher, said that when we live in the past, we feel depressed. When we live in the future, we feel anxious. And when we live in the moment is when we truly feel content. And I think that kind of summarizes flow for me. When you're in the moment, you forget about time, you forget to eat. In my case, I forget to eat. And you can really experience that stillness and that oneness being in the moment. Yeah.
Nice
Thank you,
one.
I
Shab.
wanted to share a story from 𝗏𝗃𝗪, his 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗪, the guy who's credited with discovering flow. He was a child in a concentration camp, and to pass the time, essentially, he would spend it playing chess, and that's how he discovered flow state in his own world, in his own life. And became curious about what that was, because obviously there was a lot of misery and pain around him. And yet, through this game and through the concentration, he could escape the horrors of the day to day and enter a transcendent, joyful, focused state.
Thanks, Mila. That's very
Thank you for bringing all these pieces together. Hopefully some patterns being created, noticed at this time. And I just wanted to bring it over to Iris if you are, is there anything coming up for you that you would like to share?
Yeah, one of the main triggers that I really connected with that was it's the trigger that's actually also a blocker, which is the motivation, passion, purpose. And I didn't know it when I first discovered the work of Stephen Kotler, which founded this research collective that we trained with. But the intrinsic motivators that he was describing and having this clarity on your massively transformative purpose was one of the first little games that I played that Stephen Kotler had this formula for it. And then discovering this clarity of purpose, this clarity of what motivates me, really opened up this journey, the work that I was doing. And then as I got into the flow work, I realized that this was probably the one trigger that really made a difference for me in my life and in my work. And I've actually created a course, a program, a 6-week program, just for discovering that because it was so powerful for me. And now I've had this course with this program with over 8 people, and I find that it's one of the really powerful triggers because once you have clarity on why you're doing what you're doing, then that's already setting you up for really high flow.
Thank you, Iris. That's a great bringing those pieces together. Just like what's coming up for me as a share is the idea around triggers being enjoyable. Like you just said, Iris, around the whole idea of it connected to being about motivation and some kind of reward system helps to get moving forwards with something. But I also like to bring in the idea that it's been coming about of recent, which is the sense of well, if flow is an unconscious state in so many ways because it can be conscious and unconscious because unconscious of time, but focused on something. It can also be, oh, I just did that again, and that can be people can find themselves doing things that they didn't want to do uh, because of the reward system and their habits take them down a route of doing something that they didn't actually want to be doing. And that can be an addictive pathway to the dark side of flow in itself is what is the actual habit to get into in the first place? What is a desirable habit and where's the change to to get into or what to and how to get out of it again? If that's the case for those that are potentially neurodivergent, there's a sense of being hooked on. In terms of the ADHD profile, it's often about what's interesting rather than what's really important. And what's so interesting is that that stays focused for so long that there's no ability to or remembrance to get out of flow, to eat, to rest, to do things too. So just bringing this idea of the sense of that, what are the triggers for what can be noticed around this? 'Cause I'd like to maybe explore what's coming up around this, but also what our favorite ones are to get into for the positive flow that we like, but potentially what are triggers that we find unuseful as well. Yeah, I'm just curious. I saw Sunil's hand come up first.
Yeah, hi. So, Rory, you brought up a very good point. You said, you know, my,
Oh, just lost your sound. Sunil, just lost your sound. Can anyone hear Sunil?
Oh,
No, Sunil, we can't hear you. Um, uh, while Sunil gets his sound sorted, Jan.
Um, so Actually, what I wanted to come back to was specifically after listening to you, Rory, and to Iris, the big why behind things. And
Can you
what
hear
is
me
it?
now?
Yes, now we can hear you, Sunil.
Sorry.
No problem.
So,
You know what? You can just continue, and afterwards I will drop in.
okay, you want me to continue, or someone who wants to continue,
Just
they can
continue.
continue.
Afterwards I will drop in. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Super.
So dopamine starvation is what I was talking about. That really helps in pushing yourself to into flow state. So more you starve yourself for dopamine, uh, the more your brain craves for dopamine. And when you start working, it tries to get dopamine from the work that you do, whether it is the normal work or your sport or whatever. So do the boring things and let your brain starve for dopamine.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you.
It's
And
valuable.
Jan.
Thanks for navigating, Rory. Yes, I think it just all comes together. Also, now taking on what Sunil said is that I think first of all, like we engaging into something that's quote by quote meaningful, of course, can engage, like can have some tasks that are boring. So actually starving our brain starving our brain from the instant gratification and trying to engage to something that at first doesn't give us this immediate sense of dopamine because it's effort brings us also, of course, like brings on a new flow trigger, which means like focus and effort can be a flow trigger in itself. But before coming back to that, actually, what I wanted to say and come back to is Mila just before she told the story of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi from like a story of him in a concentration camp, and it kind of reminded me, coming back to what Viktor Frankl said, is anyone who has a why can endure nearly any how, which means like I think that the reason behind why we're doing things can be one of the biggest flow triggers there is, and also can serve as a push through to endure a boring task, because once we know why we're doing something and once it's directed to something that's meaningful to us or to the survival of other people, it's much more easier to actually endure even the painful progress behind that, like be it boredom, be it exhaustion, be it whatever it is, right? So I also absolutely think that the why behind things can be so important, and it can also help us to solve the first question that I posed. The first thing that I posed is that why is it that we want to perform? Because I think there's so deep patterns that we as humans we carry within ourselves that actually make us want to perform, but we actually don't know why, because very often we're trying to fill up some kind of hole that we have within ourselves in order to be loved by other people, be recognized by other people. And yes, this can be a short term, it can be a very, very big push, right? And it can also inflate our sense of being, our sense of in spiritual circles we call of our sense of ego. And not saying that it's a bad thing to have an ego or anything. It's not about like classifying that, but rather just like knowing why we're doing something. I think that's also what brings us and makes performance more of a useful tool and a gift that we have as humans, rather than a necessity that we need to have in order to lead a joyful or peaceful life. So I think it's, to me, if I understand like this, flow is a gift, flow is a game, and seeing it as that, and having like a meaningful goal at the end, which is helping us to survive as a species in common, is probably the biggest flow trigger we have. That's just to my understanding. Yes.
Gift,
So
game.
I'm going to share an example from my own life on really what you're talking about. So I just did a bodybuilding competition at 48, and I've never been, like a big athlete before. And so I encountered a lot of what you were talking about, the resistance, the discomfort, the the negative aspects of pushing myself beyond my current limits so that I could grow. And if I didn't have my why, which actually was much bigger than getting on stage or getting into a certain shape, my why was to create certain longevity habits, certain supportive habits for myself so that the next 50, this is what I call my, the over the hill part of my life, could still continue and or improve with, even better clarity, even better energy levels, even better vitality. And so that in this, for me, in this next part of my life, I could have all that, all those resources, internal resources to give back to my community, right? So it's like there's a behavioral stack that I wanted to implement. There is an immediate why, which is the benefit to my biology. And then from that biology, there is continuous benefit for how I wanted to live my life in terms of my continuous habits and engaging with myself and my community. So, and all the different flow triggers, like what you talked about, clear goals came into place, challenge to skill ratio came into place, unpredictability came into place, autonomy, curiosity, passion, and purpose, all the different triggers that we've already kind of mentioned came in my training process.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Mila.
sharing.
Thank you so much. We've just been joined by Clarissa Dominguez as well.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you.
There's we've just been discussing various triggers of flow and what it means to everyone, and also some of the patterns of what gets us into flow. Would you like to introduce yourself briefly as well, firstly?
Yeah, thank you, Rory. And I apologize everyone for showing up late. Technical difficulties. So my name is Clarissa Dominguez, and I serve as a professional development manager currently at a law firm, but my passion is coaching high performers. So I do that here and through entrepreneurs and conscious leadership. Those are some of the things that I really enjoy helping people with. And I also facilitate programs at work and hopefully in the future with you guys and Rory. And then what else can I say, Rory? Were you guys talking about favorite flow triggers or?
Yeah. So we've mainly talked about what is flow, what typical flow triggers are, and the choices that we make through the desirability of getting into flow, and how that relates to performance. And really, I mean, if you wanted to explain what it is that you're getting from flow triggers, what do you want to share that's coming up for you, firstly? What does it mean for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely related to, I come at it from a lens of more spirituality than I think most people do. But there's an element of being tied back to a larger purpose and everything in that, whether it's mastery of a subject or, I play the piano. So if it's mastery with the piano and hitting through that friction and then getting into flow where I lose myself, there's that struggle part. And I don't think most people will say that's their favorite flow trigger, but that is part of the process, struggling to get through that. And then the autonomy that comes with that, whether I'm playing by myself or with someone else. So it's that also that challenge skills balance that's there. So it's really, can't pick one flow trigger that I like. They're all they're all great.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing. I like the way you brought in the piano, and it starts to think about like what actually there's always a task. There's a task. It doesn't have to be a particular thing. It can be anything that we enjoy doing. That's a skill. That's what I feel is that what skill do we want to learn? And there'll always be a sense of where's my sort of lowest um denominator of my of that skill level, and where do I want to aim for within that, and how do I remember to even get into it? Obviously, like what you said about the passion and the higher purpose of that drives to choose what to create with our skills. Um, yeah, but yeah, the memory piece, that the trigger as not just triggers to flow, but triggers to remember to trigger flow. What about that?
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's yeah, that's something that I think when you're getting through the struggle part, it's like, okay, what can I do here to trigger flow, whether it's and going back to the piano, like whether it's going back to a piece that is in your challenge skills balance area, so you can rebuild those flow juices and the neurochemicals that you need in order to get to the higher level. But yeah, it definitely is a lot of conscious decision and pushing through until you get into that beautiful cocktail of neurochemicals that we love to feel.
Brilliant. Um, we have not heard from George for a while. Is there something coming up for you?
Surely. Let me share my idea. Before today's broadcast, I was thinking about the flow and how to prepare myself a little bit. And I thought that the list of the flow triggers are not complete. And nobody said that it's like a totally completed flow triggers that exist. So I decided to check whether we can construct our own flow triggers. And I think that it's quite possible. So we can take the triggers that are already known as start points, but we could personalize it and adapt it in our own way, because everyone is unique, and we could construct our own triggers. And if we revert to 𝗍𝘖 𝗍𝘂𝗪, we will see that he called these preconditions not triggers, but it's a conditions to enter the flow. So we can define our own ways how to enter the flow. And this inspired me so much because I like to add something to create something. And I will work on this subject to create some new, maybe just for me, maybe it will be helpful for others, some new kinds of flow triggers, like flow drivers. I don't know, maybe I will add something new. What do you think about this?
Thank you, George. There's
We mentioned there's 26 to 36, so right now that are officially recognized. So you'll be 37th. You'll recognize the 37th and beyond.
No, I just want to share the idea that the triggers that we had, it's not a dogma, it's not some kind of rules that we should strictly follow. It's it should be fun, it should be easy, it should be interesting. So when you have no strict limits, as for me, I think it will inspire you to be more creative and to personalize your flow experience, because anyway, flow experience is very personal, and flow triggers could be also very personal. So this will bring
I
more
have a
freedom.
question. I'm curious to see if any of you guys have found yourself in flow by accident. And then once you were in it, realized it, or maybe once you were through with it, went, oh, that was flow, and I didn't expect to enter it at this time or within this activity.
It happens to me often to feel microflows. So some ideas are coming to me, and if I have some time that I could block to work on it, it brings me some kind of flow. It's not a deep flow, yes, but during the day it happens because, for example, I'm reading something, or I have some new information, and this gives me insights how to solve some topics that are in my head that I'm trying to solve. And this brings me microflow, and it's like help me training my flow muscle.
Yeah, so for me, I would say that's like witnessing somebody else's creativity. If I'm reading something that I'm enjoying and it brings up, their creativity is bringing up my creativity, I can go into flow from reading something or witnessing a play or being in a museum. So being in a presence of creativity or the result of somebody's creativity is a flow trigger for me. It's inspiring, it's interesting. And so probably could be broken down by, to like the other more official flow triggers, but being in creative space with creative people or reading something that is interesting to me ends up bringing me into flow state.
Talking my language for sure about the creativity processes. Iris, have you got anything you would like to share, or 𝗍𝗪?
Sunil started speaking before, so Sunil, can you share what you had in mind?
You can go ahead. I mean, I'll just chip in later on.
Then I'll give the mic to 𝗍𝗪𝗪𝗏.
Yeah, so as I was hearing you all, I was thinking about, what gets me into flow. So in the mornings when I wake up, so I mean, I know that for me, the best time for flow is the morning. When I wake up, that's the best time for me to get things done, the boring stuff done. And I think what gets me into the flow now that I never kind of thought about it was, I like to take my coffee and I grind my beans. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I'll measure it on a measuring scale. I'll grind them for like 30 seconds. I'll put it into my thing. Then I'll put the pour over, measure how much goes in. I think that my mind just gets into that state of presence, of being in the moment. I take a moment to, think of where the beans came from when they were put in the mountains, and there was rain, there was heat. And that kind of just makes me present. And I think that's when I go to the complicated stuff that I would not be able to do, say, post 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. I can get it done then, because I think that's what gets me into flow. But also, I think what helps is, and I know that this is for tomorrow, but keeping the phone away in a separate room, not having access to it. I think that also, they're combinations, right? It's what gets you into flow, but what also, how do you keep those blockers away? So, I know that's for tomorrow, but it does come in a little bit for my schedule. And of course, everyone has a different way of getting into flow. But I believe, we're all climbing the same mountain, but have different paths. And like what Georgie said, you got to figure out what works for you. And there are 36, whatever, 25, 36 that are listed, but I'm sure there'll be millions more. If it could be a song, it could be for me, for example, I ride my motorcycles. When I go ride that, come back, I'm in flow. Yeah, it just depends on what works for you. Going to the gym, Mila, maybe preparing for your bodybuilding competition, going to the gym is what gets you into that zone. Yeah.
Thank you for
It
sharing.
does. And for my 15-year-old daughter, for example, it's putting makeup on her face. And she does it for hours. It doesn't go anywhere afterwards,
Brilliant. There's something that comes up for me around something I noticed after studying about all the science, which was I could then see where I was being in flow with playing the guitar rather than just actively seeking it and doing it. And then also learning how to write and get into writing as previously dyslexic. And I say previously because it was much more struggle, and now I can read without trying to read, because I can relax into it. I didn't realize that I could relax and just speed read which was getting into waiting. I had to wait for specific conditions to feel in flow with reading, so I could actually just read without having all of the struggle phase of reading there consistently for like hours. If and writing, the writing process involves reading and then writing and then reading and then writing and then reading and writing. So what I noticed about that was that I could then pick up the guitar and play the guitar for a certain amount of time, and I'd noticed that I'd want to get into flow with that enough to because at first if I pick it up I'd be analyzing it, and there's a struggle phase of analyzing things whilst trying to get into it and then warming up and then play something that I'd recognized or knew, and then I'd suddenly be doing it in flow with which is the sort of more the what's it called, in the improvisation part of playing. Once you can do a skill enough to be improvising and then in flow with that, and then I'd quit whilst I was ahead with that, put the guitar down quickly and then leap over to the laptop, and I'd be able to be in I would have built up a sort of emotional energy for the task ahead that would have been more of a challenge to just come at dry, if that makes sense. So I kind of got the flow juices flowing and then would apply myself to the next level task of something that wouldn't be as much of a skill for me. And so just thought I'd add that in because that's what I noticed around recently was, oh yeah, I can actually take that skill and that I normally get into flow with and use that as an opportunity to then get into flow with something else. Jan.
What you tell me reminds me kind of how do you call it? That flow is contagious, right? That we can actually use different kind of activities in order to get into flow with another activity. Like just starting with something that's super playful and fun, and then something that we're used to, and just immediately dropping into it. And then afterwards, just using that state, just using the brain waves that have been produced during that stage in order to make use of them in the next activity. I like that. Yes. Just while listening to you guys, one thing that has come up for me was it seems to me that this experience that we call flow or autotelic activity is also primed by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, as he calls it, is we engage into it once we're dealing with something that's meaningful to us personally or something that we're close to. Like let's take Mila's daughter who just like puts on her makeup for hours, or Rory playing the guitar, and also what you said in the beginning, Rory, that it can be driven into any direction. Like be it we can suddenly be engaged into a behavior that we don't want to engage in. Be it, I don't know, doom scrolling, or be it I have no idea. Like whatever it is that brings us into an activity, right? That is perceivedly meaningful to us and somehow also an expression of our personality types, etc. So yeah, it's the more I listen and the more I read about it, it always seems to me that it's a tool. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's something that's possible and accessible to all of us. So yes, and just a question maybe that you or someone else could answer. I know I've just read through the comments in on LinkedIn regarding that, and there was Karen Johansson who asked that Sunil mentioned dopamine starvation, but I would be curious if that works differently with people who experienced ADHD, since dopamine can be naturally low, question mark. It seems like ADHD could be a bit of a natural trigger. And for anyone who has any knowledge around that, who would love to share something around that, or who knows something around that? Maybe you already.
I was just checking out the comments. So I was in flow with checking out the comments. What was the question, please?
The question was, so Neil mentioned dopamine starvation, but I would be curious if that works differently with people who experience ADHD, since dopamine can be naturally low. It seems like ADHD could be a bit of a natural trigger.
It's fascinating. The broadest perspective on that I can bring is the sense of that it may not even be a problem with dopamine in itself with ADHD. It's that it gets created in the moment, but then gets attached to many things in time, so that there's not enough dopamine to stay focused on one particular thing. So there's enough dopamine to just go, or maybe there's a learned pattern in order to stay focused on staying interested, looking for dopamine in the short term, rather than being able to process it and be focused on what is truly important, which is maybe staying focused on a task and staying focused on that particular task. So it is a fascinating topic to talk about. And again, it almost comes back down to that idea of the dark side of flow that it ends up being called here, which is pleasure seeking, to find that bit dopamine. And often what does happen helps is to stay away from all stimulation, the dopamine detox effect of staying away from it, to get used to small amounts lasting longer, because it's off maybe it's that there's that the dopamine dump is big and then tails off too quickly. When there's a dopamine detox, then a small amount kicks off and keeps someone focused on the reward of that task for longer. And then there's obviously multiple other things that could be happening, like habitual processes of self-doubt through being told that they don't fit in to society or the things from the past. So there's all of the emotional attachment to whether someone has a sense of self-worth, even, because worth is connected to reward as well. So it's very fascinating to bring those topics up. Yeah, Mila.
Yeah, the ADHD topic is relevant in my household because my daughter is under suspicion. We haven't tested yet, so I don't have a diagnosis, but I witnessed some behaviors, right? And for a teenager who's constantly on her phone and is inundated with stimulus at all times, I particularly noticed this staying focused on one thing and chasing what is dopamine chasing, like what is only interesting to her. She has a hard time staying focused and interested in a subject for school. And she will delay. There's procrastination. She won't start on her homework. She won't start on her reading because that's not an interesting topic. So we have to do, there's no medication because there's no diagnosis. And I don't know if it has anything to do with actually the amount of dopamine in her brain, like the actual chemical in the cocktail. But we're working on behavioral changes, right? Restricting phone and restricting the time that she's on her phone and restricting the amount of different attention switching that happens. That is just like part of life for teenagers. And then I also saw some of this with a client who was absolutely chasing a high, dopamine chasing, pick and choosing what was interesting to him in his job, and only focusing on the responsibilities and the activities that were interesting to him, which had a really negative effect. And the same thing in home life. And so we have to be really mindful because the cocktail is actually available to us, right? Like what's here, the neurochemicals are available and they will get released. And then that's what Kotler and Doris call the dark side of flow. And we have to make sure that we have behaviors, I guess, in place, cognitive and physical behaviors to prevent us from going down the wrong path, especially maybe if we are neurodivergent or have some kind of mental illness that we're working with.
Thanks for sharing, Mila. Before we move into more just yeah, I just want to say I want to honor people's time because we were supposed to finish in 10 minutes time. We took time to get on the call with some tech issues and things in the first place. But if anyone has to go and has something they want to say, because we all round up and probably finish in about 20 minutes. So yeah, just bear that in mind so that we can keep each other's uh, contributions equal. So, George.
Yes, I'd like to add something about HDHD. So we should really careful speaking about some diagnosis, if it's real diagnosis and the flow. But if we just allow ourselves to make some investigation around this topic, usually some mental issues have the reason, the root, the cause. And if it's a real problem, usually it is connected to some trauma in the past. And this is the way where solving this past problem could help to reduce the symptoms or maybe heal this problem completely. And then after that, when we settle all the things in the past, flow is a great idea to how make some discipline for yourself to move yourself forward in a very efficient and fun way.
Thank you, George. Jan.
I think that's very valuable. Also, like what Mila and Georgie just shared, and I also wanted to speak on the subject of trauma and on the fact that us as humans, we are creatures of connection, right? So very often, I think that that's what I meant also in the beginning, just from my perspective. I cannot speak for everyone, and who am I to say what's right and wrong in today's world, right? But just from what I see, and also from working with a lot of clients around that, is that I think anything that we can do, be it like the dark side of flow or the bright side of flow, can be anything that we try to attach so much meaning towards too, because we like just lack this. Our nervous system lacks the feeling of warmth that we get through mutual interaction with people or through worthy interaction with ourselves, and then we try to externalize it and put that onto, be it like performing or whatever it is, and like by that we try to get short dumps of that of dopamine and maybe even like a sense of reward and a short sense of value and recognition by other people. So I think taking into the consideration of flow, I think like understanding the true nature of humans is, to my understanding, like the biggest precondition, because yes, we are mammals, we are creatures of connection, and I think anything, even a why behind our living, etc., can be and true resiliency in life can be best found by actually first feeling safe in ourselves and our bodies, and from there on we can generate like this personal wisdom, like this personal meaning, which is then again leads us to say, hey, that's actually interesting for me, so that's actually the reason why I want to get into flow here. And that makes flow, to my understanding, more of a gift rather than actually like a necessity in life, because then suddenly we can access these things with a more sense of play rather than a sense of rigid and overly rigid focus. That's what I think is so important to take into consideration. So I think actually secure attachment to ourselves and others is probably can be even seen as a flow trigger on the long term. That's what I guess. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Thank you, Jan. I just want to circle round just to give an opportunity to Clarissa and Sunil as we circle around.
Jan, I liked that resonates a lot with me, and I think a lot of the clients that I've had, what I hear is almost that like flow can be this path back to integration with the self and connection. And I work in the legal fields, and there's, I think, like a huge disconnection of people from themselves, and then with their work. And a lot of what I will do is spend time helping people reintegrate themselves. And flow can be sort of like a medicine for that, whether it's, the novelty or risk or deep embodiment or clear goals. And then, like you said, that community aspect, or it's almost like relational anchoring. Like we need mentoring, coaching, like authentic connection, like groups where we can be our authentic selves, and seek like feedback that's meaningful and we feel safe to receive it. And then I'd like to say something about the spiritual aspect of it, which there's more and more research showing that the spirituality is part of our DNA, like whether that's prayer or being in service to something higher than ourselves or to one another, breath work, contemplation, like all of that is in our kind of turns on certain DNA, what scientists thought was junk DNA. But now I'm thinking of Dr. Lisa Miller, who our facilitator with the Flow Research Collective actually interviewed for his podcast. But her research is showing in longitudinal twin studies that we have that DNA that turns on for spirituality when we are connected to one another, and exactly what you're saying on. So I just encourage people to explore that and to be open to the way that flow comes to them, if it's through connection with others or in their art and music and creativity, like we've touched on. So
Awesome. Thanks, Clarissa.
So yeah. So I would just like to say a few things before I quit. So one thing that is very important for us is to understand that your eyes are your window to your world, and brain training is one thing which really helps you and get into flow. So how do you train your brain for getting into flow? And that comes through your hand-eye coordination. Whatever we've talked about flow triggers is basically a coordination between your mind and body. And your eyes are that pathway for your mind and body. So if you're able to do exercises that trigger flow using brain training, that's one thing that's very important. So there are a lot of information on brain training that's there on the internet, so you can always see how that can help you. Now, the next point that I wanted to talk about is less is more, right? I talked about dopamine starvation. The next thing that is very also important is one thing which I personally practice is fasting. Right? When you are in an intermittent fasting state, you get into flow more easily than when you are in full. When you had your proper meal, it's very difficult to get into a flow state than when you're in a faster state. So less is more is very important. So practicing less in wherever you feel you don't need it, I think that's going to enable you to get into flow more easily. So these are the flow triggers that I personally work on with my athletes, with my clients, and with myself also, and I really feel that benefits. I would like to share this with everyone here.
Thank you,
Nice one.
Sunil.
Nice one, Sunil. As I pass it over to Rishabh, I just wanted to also bring on the just in the idea of taking the idea of the fasting, and also there's the idea of flow meals, which are meals that aren't as heavy and can keep people more in flow, as well as into rim or into play with that process. But yeah, the fasting is great as long as it doesn't put someone into too much shock straight away. But that's great too. Brilliant. And circling around to as well the environment. What triggered around that idea of someone that is in an environment where they feel restricted, uh, is a massive thing. So that idea of someone when they feel like if you take someone has more ADHD, but that's just because they operate in flow by moving and talking with people and being moving around rather than trying to sit still and focus, that potentially do they have a problem if they are in an environment where they can be in flow with what they like to do? And that's the question. That's the big question around what is mental health if the environment is it is the right trigger for their flow, for a positive flow. But yeah, thank you, and passing over to Rishabh.
Yeah, no, thanks. I have to go in about 2 minutes. I've got another call coming up, but I just wanted to add to what Clarissa said. Clarissa, I totally agree with you. I think I use flow as a spiritual experience, but it all depends on how you define spirituality. And everyone has their own definition of spirituality, and which I would offer is if you're using flow as a tool for to experience experience something, that you're part of something greater. That's how I define spirituality. It can be a really great tool. It's very fulfilling. It's all encompassing. You feel alignment. And I think what you said was using it as therapy. When you align the heart, mind, body, soul. So again, flow can be used in many different ways. It's a tool. It's a state of being which we all have access to. And I think the more the world gets into flow, the better the world will be, hopefully. But that I think I have to leave. I'm sorry, but great being part of this discussion. Thank you, Iris, again for getting us on this journey, and thank you, Rory, and lovely meeting all of you. And all the best.
Thanks so much, Rishabh.
All right,
Thank you,
peace. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll take this opportunity to round it up for 10 minutes with some reflections, some ideas, some summaries, whatever highlights, whatever you want to bring, or we can go around and just share that.
Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions in the chat or LinkedIn or anything?
So, someone said, looking forward to, excited to learn how to trigger a flow state with the intention of accelerate our performance in work. And those people highlighting things that we've said to do with maximum efficiency, minimum effort. And Sunil mentioned dopamine starvation, but I would be curious if that works differently to people with the experience of ADHD. And yes, that's it. So those are the topics. We've covered quite a bit of that. So if there's anything round up further, who would like to share first with just a couple of minutes each? Mila.
Talked about the environment or the place. So I think that from a trigger perspective, I think that our physical environment could be a trigger into flow as well. So I just wanted to mention that. So for example, for me, I meditate and I have a specific place in my house. A lot of the times when I enter that physical space, I already feel myself in flow before I sit down, before I breathe, before I start focusing. And then in a work environment too, the suggestion is to keep an uncluttered space so that you keep your distractions low, and you create some kind of focus. So I do the whole plan and do separate, and I will plan my activity for the day, the night before. And then when I come into my workspace, a lot of the times I have my focus list with like 3 things, and I don't have any other clutter. That when it works best for me, any other clutter, and then I can just flow, right? My focus goes right to that first thing on the list. I don't have to think about it. And then I go right into the cognitive kind of flow.
Amazing. Thank you so much, 𝗲𝘂𝗧. What's coming up for anyone else?
I
Yeah.
would just, yes, actually, just what's coming up to me is while we were talking about flow, I saw this. I thought, okay, well, anything that we do, kind of like, since flow follows focus, and we see also like what Sunil also said, that our lights are the tunnel, like are the tunnel, or the like the portals of our souls. And I think probably the same counts for our ears or our tactiles that we have, where people who are not able to see or to hear, right? Because I think there's many possibilities to interact with our environment. Since flow follows focus, I think like very often I think of flow like of a tunnel. And now in order like where we want to go through from one place to the other, from point A to point B, but in order to like come closer and like really accelerate that place, it's more about like opening the ends of the tunnel. So actually it stays the same, but it's just like a rapid push through. There's like this pull where we go into the tunnel, and then we're just shortly in it, and then we get sprayed out on the other side. So it's like just like I see this in acceleration mode. And since it's like since there's so many neurochemicals involved, it's also a tunnel when we use it correctly and we engage afterwards into a good recovery, or I like to just call it like just life engagement again, and nurturing ourselves afterwards. I think it can be a very pleasant experience that we can give ourselves, and leads me back to just my conclusion. I think flow is a gift that we have as humans, and once we know how to leverage it good, it's probably really, really can be a fun experience to be added to the complexity of the human experience in total. Yes. Thanks, guys, also for your perspectives. You fueled me on that.
Amazing, Jan. Okay, George.
Yes, I'd like to follow up the focus notion that in simple words, for the flow, we need focus and we need energy. And it is a good idea to reflect where is your focus now and why it is there. Is it the right place for your focus? And after that, you should know that focus is not enough. You need to have enough energy, because flow is a highly demanding process for the energy. And it is good to make a checkup what drains your energy, where you have this leaking of the energy. Maybe it's some post-trauma, maybe it's some conflicts, maybe it's some not very beneficial for your lifestyle. Because flow, it's also a lot of discipline. If you want to be totally in the flow, you need to rethink your identity, and you need to rethink your lifestyle. So it's a good point where your personal transition could be started. Thank you for this meeting. It was lovely and also.
Nice one, George. Brilliant. Awesome. So, what's coming up for Clarissa?
Yeah, I can go because I need to go in a minute. But Georgie, to what you said, removing, I think, and we haven't mentioned it yet during this talk, but removing friction is incredibly important, and I don't think we think about that enough. I mean, like you talked about your environment, but what's causing you mental friction? And it could be the environment, or it could be something. I'll give an example, something silly for me in the mornings that's my easiest time to get into flow. But we have 4 animals in the house, and there's a lot of chaos first thing in the morning. So now, I have to plan for that. Just like if we have kids, although kids are different, those are things not things, people you love and should get your focus. But the dogs first thing in the morning, I'm like, okay, I don't need to deal with this right now. How can I remove the situation to where I can get into flow and my environment is peaceful first thing in the morning versus kind of letting them run my day? And it's such a silly, small, frivolous example. And I love all of our animals, but I know that that time, first thing in the morning, is and it's 5 a.m., between 5 and 7 a.m. Like they can still asleep and I can get my time where I'm doing my prayers or journaling or whatever it is. And again, I think that's like a frivolous example to use, but it's so important to kind of think about where throughout your day you have friction where you can move things. So it's not always just environmental, like your desk. It can be like the mental friction. And for other people, that might not bother them. I'm thinking of my roommate. She loves being with the animals first thing in the morning. So for her, that is like a flow trigger for her where it makes her feel good and puts her into that. So it's funny how we're like opposites like that. But so you just have to know yourself and know what works for you in terms of your environment mentally and around you.
Thanks, Larissa. So, Mila, Iris, and Sunil.
Just kind of wrapping up.
Yes.
So yeah, Clarissa, I think you actually mentioned a really good point, which is it's personalized, right? So that which for you is a blocker, for somebody is a trigger. And that we talked a little bit about that before, that it's not dogma, that you have to know thyself, that it is, while the chemistry is the same, what triggers flow, the meaning we give to things is very personal. So I think that's a really key and important point. And then we also talked about recovery. I think so. Again, improper recovery becomes a flow blocker. And I think if we don't pay attention to proper sleep, proper nutrition, and again, that's personalized, right? What does that mean for the individual? So that I feel nourished, I feel energized. And putting the flow piece into the 4 states, starting from struggle, which is beta waves, and then release into alpha, then flow, that's the good feeling part, which is theta and gamma, and then recovery. And so the recovery has to be very intentional because sometimes you don't want to get out of flow. And that's micro and macro. So when you're in flow state, when you come out, you have to recover, and you have to plan your life in such a way that you have a flow prone life, which means a recovery prone life as well. And I think that piece in my world, it's been difficult to communicate to people because they just want to stay in what feels good. And then there's a huge crash. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks, Mila. Brilliant. So, Sunil, Iris.
Go, Sunil. Go for it.
Okay, so just to tell the audience, there are a few things that is very important for us to consider. Is there'll be a lot of tasks that are thrown around you. What you need to do is to pick up the most important tasks when you are having the most energy. So when you have the most energy, pick up the most important task. Do not get randomized by trying to do small things, and that leads to procrastination. So don't do that. So enjoy flow, enjoy doing most important tasks, and yes, you will be happy.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sunil.
That's great advice. And I wanted to say that learning about all the flow triggers was a very curious process, because on one end, many of them are very intuitive, and many of them are very counterintuitive. They're all things that we somehow do or know about or find ourselves in. But I found it fascinating that once you become aware of what the flow triggers are, and then you learn how to set up your life so that all of these flow triggers start to become, your life and start having the domino effect. I think that makes a difference between a life where you have spontaneous breakthroughs and spontaneous high creative moments, and a life where you can actually create the things that you want intentionally, consistently, and while having fundamental well-being in your life, rather than the going between burnout phases or complete crashes or lack of motivation on one end, and all of these roller coasters that we all kind of have been through. So that's why I think it's really key is learning about the flow triggers and everything else about flow, and then working with coaches who actually can support us and we can support others, and learning how to bring all of this knowledge into practical everyday life.
Amazing. Thanks, Iris. And yeah, and have you got some? Go for it.
Really short, but maybe you go first, Rory, because you haven't said anything yet, and then maybe if there's still time for me, I just wanted to add something to what Mila said.
No, go for it. So, yeah, so if it's like
It's a very short one. So the crash that Mila just mentioned, like that, the difficult piece around communicating people structure, or like the necessity of having a specific structure, right? Also to what Georgie said, is two small perspectives. I think when there's a crash, I find it always very interesting to see, okay, what are actually like the internal blockers that people have within themselves? Maybe like some dysfunctional beliefs or whatever it is that actually doesn't allow them to keep up the structure, because chaos feels so known and so much more identified with knowingness, and not really with safety, but kind of a short amount of safety that we experience, like from a trauma lens at least. That I'm just like, maybe just like giving a hint here to take a look on that. And to what George said also, that it's a discipline. And I've just read recently the book by Rick Rubin, The Creative Act, at least parts of it. And he talks about one thing, which is like, in order to be creative, we have antennas. We all have the central antennas that we use in order to make sense out of the world. And then we use the sensory inputs to make sense of it and put out something creative into the world. And I realized that sometimes, but that's only for me, I have no idea how my neurology works, even chaos can be a flow trigger, because if I open up, I can see beauty in everything. That's how it feels sometimes, but I don't want to set this as a precondition. It's just something that came up for me.
Thanks for the curiosity.
Sorry, you are, Rory. It's your turn.
That's all right. Yeah, I just really, I love the curiosity piece there at the end, just to open up the spaces for carrying on being curious about all of this. That's what's important here. Yeah, thanks so much for all being here. The one last thing that comes up for me around, like, I love the idea of noticing about the personality piece, and how some people are drawn to rehearsing all the time in their minds, and some people don't know how to potentially rehearse and plan and make things happen ahead of what they're experiencing. And so the idea of mentally rehearsing what is wanted is so important, and can be a game changer. That's what I love to help people with, is the idea of, if it's really struggling around ADHD or neurodivergence, is to anchor in the flow blocker as a flow trigger, to anchor it in and go, when this happens, but it's only through mentally rehearsing and noticing that if I feel like self-doubt right now, I might go off and do the dark flow. But if I notice the self-doubt and be able to go, oh yeah, there it is. Oh, that's the trigger to go and do the thing I don't want to do right now, which is get into flow with something that I truly do want to get in flow with, but my brain wants to go off and do something else. And so that's that I just wanted to wrap around that for a moment, just as idea that it's not about trying to search for an ideal flow trigger. Sometimes it's, what do you want to get into flow with, and it comes back to the vision, and what's the project that relates to the vision, and what's the daily habits that get you into the project that reminds you of the vision and all of that stuff. So thanks, thanks again for being here. This has been an absolute pleasure and really exciting times that we live in to actually have the choice to get blocked or get flowed or get triggered in a good ways or not. So thanks again, and everyone that's been on the panel has been so insightful, enjoyable to be with, and I'll certainly want to do this again sometime. Uh, and yeah, so if anyone's resonated with what anyone said, that everyone's going to be tagged in the comments. All the speakers are tagged in the comments, and so yeah, feel free to reach out if anyone's watching and they're interested in what they're doing specifically. Go to their profile, check them out, what they're doing, and because it's about resonance. And the skills that we can either learn from them, or just good coaching is so people don't realize coaching doesn't have to be about learning something that someone else knows. It can just be about the space to resonate and be with. So if there's any resonance with people here and you're curious about coaching, reach out. We're here for conversations. We're here for helping the world be a better place through noticing these things. And so thanks again for being here. Is there any final one word curiosity piece or one word? Iris?
I just want to say that tomorrow we're gonna be talking about flow blockers, so everybody can join the final follow-up of this flow trigger panel talk today. And I also just want to say that it's been a very enriching experience working alongside with you guys throughout the year, just sharing and learning and being trained and training. It's I think what helps us embody this knowledge and this experience, and it just brings so many rich perspectives. So thank you all for playing along with this fun series that we started. And join us tomorrow for the flow blockers.
Thank you, Iris. Thank you, Rory. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
It's been
you.
great to
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, audience.
Take it easy.